As the war continues, protests also continue to flare up across the globe. People are gathering in thousands, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Let's begin by telling you what's happening in Turkey. The police used tear gas and water cannon as hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters tried to storm an airbase that houses U.S. troops. This came just hours before U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit. Blinken held tough talks in Turkey aimed at soothing the anger of one of Washington's most strategic but difficult allies about the bloodshed in Gaza. The protest outside the airbase in southeastern Turkey was organized by a humanitarian relief fund. There were no reports of injuries or arrest. Adana lies at a distance of 410 kilometers from Syria. The Mediterranean coastal base is owned by Turkey but used by the US Air Force and occasionally Britain's Royal Air Force, providing them with strategic access to large parts of the Middle East. This airbase has also been used to support the international coalition fighting Islamic State in both Syria and Iraq. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, around 10,000 people marched through the streets of the capital, Islamabad. They called for the government to allow them to be involved in the conflict between Hamas and Israel. The demonstration was organized by Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Labbaik party. The protesters chanted, "I'm ready to come and we are ready to defend Al-Aqsa," referring to Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. The protesters marched towards the US Embassy but stopped about half a kilometer from the red zone where the embassy is located.
हुकूमत पाकिस्तान से हमने पहले भी कहा था, अब भी अगर आप इजाजत दें, अपनी फौज न भी ले, तो हम इस वक्त भी फलस्तीनियों की हिमायत में जाने के लिए, उनके साथ खड़े होकर, उनकी हिमायत में लड़ने के लिए और उनके साथ मरने के लिए आप भी तैयार हैं।
In Jordan, protesters gathered near the Israeli embassy in Amman to demonstrate against the latest war between Israel and Hamas and in support of Palestinian resistance. They also called on Arab leaders to open the Rafah crossing border to help more Palestinians in Gaza obtain medicine, food, fuel and other basic needs. Meanwhile, in Iraq, Iraqis took to the streets in Baghdad to protest against the visit of the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Blinken made an unannounced stop in Baghdad on Sunday, where he met with Iraqi leaders and toured the entire region amid spiraling tensions over Israel's war with Hamas. In Greece, several thousand protesters marched to the Israeli embassy in Athens in solidarity with Palestinians. Many protesters chanted "Free Palestine" while calling for immediate ceasefire in the deadly war. In France, thousands demonstrated in Paris to show solidarity for Palestinians and to demand a ceasefire for fighting in Gaza. Demonstrators held Palestinian flags bearing slogans such as "Stop the massacres" and "Ceasefire now." In Indonesia, thousands gathered in the nation's capital to show solidarity with the Palestinians and condemn Israel's action in the ongoing conflict. Participants stemming from various faith groups crowded in their thousands at the National Monument in Jakarta, holding both Indonesian and Palestinian flags while shouting and singing in support of the Palestinian cause. Meanwhile, protesters in Israel continue to demand the release of hostages. Protesters joined families of the hostages that have been camping at the headquarters for the volunteer-based Hostages and Missing Families Forum. The families of the hostages held by Hamas have vowed to not return home until their family members have returned too. As world leaders scramble to initiate a ceasefire, Pope Francis made an urgent plea for a halt to the conflict and the fighting in Gaza. He called for a humanitarian aid and help for those injured in order to ease the very grave situation. The pontiff has already called for the creation of humanitarian corridors and has said that a two-state solution was needed to keep things cool and calm. in the region.
Vi prego di fermare.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.